Hey guys, so welcome back to another episode on today's property upgrading journey. So let's just take a look at how the volume effect has translated in terms of the price performance as well, right? Because most of the time we assume that freehold, it should be of a higher price compared to a 99-year leasehold project. So just take a look at the top 20 performance for Aristo Amber. So naturally you're going to think that a freehold is going to do very well compared to a 99 years leasehold project. So it did pretty well in terms of the top 20 gainers. You can see profited from 300 over 1,000 all the way up to 750,000. This is the performance for Silversea. Top 20 earners starting at 600,000 all the way up to about 1M in terms of profitability. So this is a very good case study where we can see that, it doesn't mean that buying into something that's freehold is going to give you more value, because there's just so many other factors to consider as well, including this very key element called the volume effect. I think, of course, one of the biggest pitfalls is that most buyers, right, we get very emotional because when you go to a new launch, it's very exciting. You do not want to miss out on a good buy. Therefore, sometimes maybe we are put in a position where we make a hasty decision to go for a particular new launch that maybe it might not have been the best choice in that particular season. And maybe once we buy into it and we realize, oh no, maybe 5 years down, I'm having difficulties selling it. Why is this so? So to really avoid that, what we really want to understand is that it's very easy to buy into any property if your budget allows. However, I think the key thing here to take note is when you want to sell, how easy is it then going to be for you to sell off this property, right? Because no point if, let's say, your property is able to appreciate but you still cannot sell this, because that also means that you technically cannot extract any cash, any equity out of this particular property. Let's say you want to sell it, or maybe you want to switch out your portfolio, you've got to get rid of this particular property before you can switch on. So it's also important to understand what are the limitations when it comes to selling a property. Are there going to be some sort of negative downside down the road when you choose to sell off this property? So you can also say you really truly only know how good your property is when you're putting it out on the market for sale, or how desirable is it. So to answer that, we got to take a look at the other key factors of the moat analysis, and in particular, we want to take a look at your exit audience. Your exit audience, usually in this particular moat calculator, we are looking at your HDB upgraders, because HDB upgraders, your pool of buyers for private condos, usually come from your HDB upgraders, especially let's say you had the OCR resale projects, or you recently MOP from your EC. Most of the time your buyer pool is going to be your HDB upgraders. So it's important to be in an area where there are potential HDB upgraders coming in. But of course, when we talk about HDB upgraders and we talk about your future buyers, then we also want to take a look at what's the quantum effect, what's the parents attraction effect. So all these are different factors that will be collectively considered by potential buyers as well. Right? So first, who are your buyers that you can sell to in future? So this is the very first key thing that we want to understand. For example, if I buy into this particular project, am I going to be faced with an oversupply? Am I going to have very strong competition in the area? Just for example, in Tampines as well, walking distance towards Tampines MRT, technically there are only 2 projects for you to choose from. If you're happy to move a little bit further away towards the Tampines Quarry area, then there are 9 projects for you to choose from. Of course, technically that also means that, let's say today you're a seller, you have more competition within that 9 condominiums. If let's say a buyer is going to come to this area, they can also consider the 8 other projects in that particular area. So that also means that you got a higher competition, higher supply when you're planning to sell your property in future. Right, so secondly, we also want to make sure that the buyers have the affordability to buy into the quantum that you're planning to sell it off. So it's also important to note like who is your audience, because most of the time the buyers will be your HDB upgraders. So are your HDB upgraders going to have enough down payment as well, enough loan affordability to go into the level that you are looking at? And I think as we all know, sometimes the resale HDB does not profit as much compared to someone who is a BTO owner and has seen that capital gains after their 5 years MOP period. So it's also very important to note the particular region and the district you're going in, whether there are plots for HDB BTOs, because that is going to form your future buyer audience. These are the pool of HDB upgraders, or whether in that particular region are there HDBs that are going to reach their MOPs. We also want to make sure that we have that pool of audience that's going to come in, because most of the time people buy back within the area that they are familiar with. So it's important to note within your surrounding area what is the demographics as well. And of course, then you also want to take note, is your home going to be catered towards own stay, or is it going to be catered towards investors? For example, if you're a 3-bedder, most of the time you're looking for buyers who are buying for own stay. 1-2-bedders, generally you get a 50-50 mix. Maybe you're getting 50% investors, 50% people who are buying for own stay. Of course, if let's say someone is coming from HDB upgrader, generally they are very used to having at least 3 bedrooms. So if let's say today you're choosing onto what kind of project to buy into, it would be great to buy back into something of at least 3 bedrooms and above, because this is going to cater to more families, therefore increasing maximizing your number of buyer pool as well. So of course, you want to buy the correct layout so that you have an ease of exit. So layout is important. Sometimes maybe particular projects, the layout is just a little bit more compact in terms of the bedroom sizes. That's going to hinder quite a fair bit of buyers into buying into this particular project. Maybe just because they love the location, they love the view, but just in terms of the comfort of staying in this particular layout is not very comfortable for their family needs, then they will still have to turn this entire unit away. So the layout is also important. Sometimes particular layouts have a little bit more wasted space compared to maybe a layout that's slightly smaller in terms of square feet but has a more efficient setup. Then buyers may naturally still go for something that's a smaller overall square feet because they can then still continue to keep their quantum a little bit lower while still enjoying a pretty decent layout. And of course, the type of properties and the size is important in terms of quantum growth as well. So for example, if you take a look at that one beta performance at Park Esta, most of the homeowners still see very nice healthy gains. They have an average of 4.73% in terms of annualized gain. However, if you take a look at the 3 betas, because 3 betas are bigger in size, averagely their quantum gain is about 7.29%. So you can see that they enjoy a lot more growth in terms of their quantum and their annualized gains just by opting for something that is of a bigger size property. Alright, so the fourth one in terms of your exit plan is to really take note of the parents attraction factor, which is also part of our mode analysis. So what is this parents attraction factor? Most Singaporeans, when they have kids, of course they always want the best for their kids. By that, they are always very particular about sending their kids to great schools so that they can receive the best education as well. So it's also important to buy into an area where you have primary school options within the 1 kilometer mark, because in future, let's say when you want to sell it off, there will be this group of buyers who needs that address to be within 1 kilometer. So if you have 1 kilometer towards a very good school, for example, Methodist Girls School, then naturally your buyer demand is still going to be there as well. So these are different factors that we also want to account for to build up our moat. And of course, the next one is transformation in terms of exit factor. Transformation is key here. So transformation is exciting because buyers want more amenities, they want something new in the area. And I mean, MRT always helps to boost up certain values of that particular area. So for example, with the introduction of Thomson East Coast Line, we can see a lot of areas started to perform even better after the introduction of all these MRT lines. So all these are great transformation that has taken place and given growth towards that certain region as well. So transformations is also something to take note of. So of course, we want to be in a growth portfolio rather than a non-performing portfolio to be able to ride on inflation in terms of our capital gains and make our property work harder for us rather than we work harder for the property as well. So having shared all this above information, we hope you have gotten a clearer picture for you to make a more informed decision as to what kind of project selection should you go for using all our tools, using all our framework. However, buying into the right unit at the right price is also key. You can go into a beautiful project, but perhaps at an over market pricing that in future you might have troubles hitting a certain level of profits. So we really want to make sure that we also enter to a pricing that is palatable to us and is something that we can still comfortably exit in the future. So how do we determine what is the correct pricing to enter into? So of course, pricing is pretty much art and science together. It really depends on that particular segment. It depends on that particular market. What are the market conditions at that particular season? For example, during COVID, post-COVID, it was a bull run market, right? So if you're going to pay a little bit higher than the past transaction, it's okay because the prices were on an upward trend. So you would rather enter in rather than getting priced out further on later because the prices just kept climbing up. So it really depends on the season you're in also. But of course, some great ways to take a look is what are the past transactions done in that area. Maybe a particular stack is able to perform better than other particular stacks, maybe due to unblocked views, high floors, because these are premiums that buyers are willing to pay for. And of course, we talk about the lease reset calculations also. So those are also great ways for you to understand the pricing in that particular area, whether it makes sense for you to buy into that particular project as well. So of course, right pricing is really not about buying cheap. What you want is to really buy into something that can appreciate and something that's going to give you the best value. And I think it's very key not to time the market, especially if you're upgrading to a private property or to a bigger asset class. Because sometimes when we do that, we might end up getting priced out of the market instead, especially in a market that is moving upwards trend. So I think one very good case study, let me just share with you guys this particular case study. So we help our HDB clients, Mr. and Mrs. Gunn, so the Gunn family. They are a local plus PR family nucleus. They have one very cute son. They also have their sister staying with them. So a total family size of 4. They were looking to upgrade from their HDB to a private for lifestyle as well as capital appreciation. So, they will refer clients. So when they call in, they really wanted to find out more about this entire upgrading process. How is it going to work? What kind of areas should they be looking for? What are the calculations do they need to be aware of? So I think the great thing about these clients are they are actually pretty detailed and pretty data driven. So in the sense that they've also done a lot of homework of their own. So that's great. So this just happened back in 2022. We met them up, we had a discussion at their place, we understood their plans, and then we also gave them a particular recommendation in terms of how we're going to select the right property during that season of the time. In fact, they were really toggling, should they go for a lender or should they go for a condo, 3-bedder, 4-bedder, 5-bedder, what sort of property should they be entering into. Right, so for them, I think 50% is really they want to have that level of investment element, meaning to say they really want this particular project and unit that they're buying into to see that level of capital appreciation. If not, there's no point about doing this entire upgrading process. They're comfortable in their HDB, they can also stay put there, right? So it's important to not only fulfill that 50% own needs requirements, it's also important to ensure that this particular property that buying into is going to be able to see some level of capital appreciation in the years to come. So for this particular clients, we actually recommended them to focus on the OCR region based on that time period. So for them, they were not too particular in terms of location. They're a little bit more flexible in terms of the expat. And of course, so what we did is to really work through the entire macro and micro analysis using all our frameworks. So we used our mode analysis. We were looking for disparity effect in the particular region. So we did dive a lot into the different regions, and then ultimately we recommended them to buy into Sembawang still. So for example, at that particular period, we shortlisted maybe Jewel and Bangkok as well as the Quads. And in Punggol, these were like the particular few projects that we recommended them to enter into. Of course, using the mode analysis, we also wanted to take a look at the volume effect and whether there's going to be a healthy level of transactions to ensure that in future they will be able to see a level of appreciation. So we also wanted to see what were the unit mix here and what is the gap towards the new launches in that area. What are the different sizes in the new launches as well. So all these were really very heavy data that we were doing for our clients as well, so that we can then further narrow down into a particular district and MRT to suit both their family needs as well as their investment goals. Very happily, we managed to sell off their HDB back in August 2022 at 710,000. We managed to do like a one move for them as well. Eventually, after all the analysis and all, we finally secured a unit at Sky Park Residences, which is back in Sembawang, and we encouraged them to go for something that is bigger, also because they love space a lot as well. So eventually they set up for a 5-bedder, and in fact, this is very interesting because at this particular point, they were entering at a price of 1.81 M for a 1593 square feet home. At this particular season, they were actually entering at the highest price, right? So meaning to say they are going to outdo all the past transactions in that project, and we still encourage our clients to go ahead and take that move to enter into this particular project because we really saw the potential in this particular project and in this particular layout, in fact, because 5-bedders and 4-bedders are very rare in supply, and we didn't want them to miss out the chance of owning something that is so rare as well. And fast forward to today, clients are so glad they managed to enter into this beautiful project as well. In just less than 1.5 years, Sky Park really did outdo their past performance. So we bought in at 1.81 M. So remember back then we were the highest. However, the price right now is doing about 2.068 M for the same size, 1593 square feet. And in terms of the latest transactions in 2023 has even moved up further to 1003 PSF. So our clients right now are sitting on a very nice healthy gains of over 278k in terms of their paper gains in just less than 2 years. And interestingly, if let's say, they were to turn back time if they kept their HDB, as of today, right now the price performance there is just about 720 to 750k. So they will still see some gains, so maybe about 20 to 30k in terms of increment. So if they kept their HDB, a little bit more of like a state of plateau in terms of the price performance. However, because they were daring enough to make that jump and have that confidence that their property is going to appreciate over the next few years as well, even though they might be entering at the highest price possible, then I think it was still a great move because overall, as of today, we are still seeing more than 278k in terms of paper gain just in the short 2 years. And of course, if we apply the concept of forced savings together with capital appreciation as to why owning a private sometimes might be wiser than owning a HDB, and using the right framework to select the right property is going to also allow you to be able to enjoy this kind of profits. So we have come to the end of today's episode, and to sum it up, we want to make sure that we do not buy into the wrong property just because it's near MRT or maybe just because it's freehold. We really want to deep dive into what makes a property the right one in terms of whether it can appreciate in valuation in the future and whether there will be the increased speed of exit down the road as well. Using all our PLB frameworks, the 5-step journey that you need to ensure that you have done in place, what is the investment methodology, what is the season of change effect, what is the disparity effect, so what is the pairing strategy that we're going to use for a macro level, in terms of micro level, what is the disparity effect, what are the mode analysis that we can use to ensure that we have a higher percentage of mode for a particular project, then breaking down into the particular unit type, the stack facing, of course, when it comes down to the pricing. And of course, just now I mentioned we have 6 frameworks, right? To give you a very quick and short framework, we also have this framework called the PLB 4-star rating, and we have grouped them according to the types of properties and their performance, whether it's a high appreciation property or whether it's high or low rental yield or whether it's high or low quantum growth. So we have grouped this kind of properties and what kind of rating we are giving having this kind of properties. So of course, 4-star is your best buy. High growth, high rental, no brainer. I think this will be a great buy. Of course, those with low growth, low rental, try to avoid them unless maybe they really fulfill all your particular family needs. So this is just a very quick 4-star rating framework that we have for you as well to make more informed property decisions as well. So of course, if you'd like to discuss more about your property upgrading plans, feel free to arrange for a consult with our team. We'll be more than happy to share with you guys as well. Until then, my name is Caline and we'll see you on the next episode.